Good evening, and welcome to AJP's Northeast Asia Closing Brief. Korea's rebound came against the backdrop of a much bigger story unfolding across Asia. As Korean stocks finished higher, investors were digesting the blockbuster market debut of China's memory chip maker, CXMT, and what it could mean for the global semiconductor race. Three markets, one semiconductor story, and three very different reactions. The KOSPI closed at 6,755.75, up 0.97%. The Nikkei 225 finished at 64,890, gaining 0.43%. The Shanghai Composite rose 0.64% to 3,838.59. The regional focus shifted to China after memory chip maker CXMT surged more than 500% on its Shanghai debut, briefly becoming the largest company on the mainland stock market by market value. Rather than lifting semiconductor sentiment across Asia, the blockbuster listing raised fresh questions about intensifying competition in the global DRAM industry. Korea recovered as investors focused on long-term AI demand and large supply agreements announced over the weekend, while Japan benefited from falling oil prices that boosted airlines and automakers. China, meanwhile, was driven less by the index itself than by extraordinary trading in its newest semiconductor champion. The KOSPI closed at 6,755.75, up 65.13 points, or 0.97%. The KOSDAC also gained, rising to around 761. Technology shares led the rebound. Samsung Electronics closed at 254,001, up 1.8%, while SK Hynix climbed 3.24% to 1,816,000 won as investors look beyond today's concerns over Chinese competition and continue to price in robust AI memory demand. The weaker spot remained SK Square, which fell 1.17% despite gains in semiconductor names, reflecting continued caution toward holding company valuations. The market spent much of the day digesting two opposing forces. On one side was optimism surrounding multi-year AI supply agreements announced during President Lee Jae-myung's Silicon Valley visit. On the other was the emergence of CXMT as a much larger competitor after its record-breaking stock market debut. Investors ultimately chose to focus on demand rather than competition, allowing Korean chipmakers to finish higher. The Shanghai Composite closed at 3,838.59, up 0.64%, but the index barely captured what happened beneath the surface. The overwhelming story was CXMT. China's largest DRAM producer soared more than 500% in its market debut, briefly overtaking Industrial and Commercial Bank of China to become the mainland's most valuable listed company. The listing generated record trading turnover and reinforced Beijing's ambition to build a self-sufficient semiconductor industry. Outside semiconductors, energy shares weakened as crude oil prices retreated. PetroChina slipped 0.72%, while offshore producer CNOOC fell 0.99%. Consumer heavyweight Kweichow Mutai also edged lower, declining 0.19%. The result was an index that finished modestly higher, even as capital rotated aggressively beneath the surface between technology optimism and falling energy prices. The Nikkei 225 closed at 64,890, up 278.85 points, or 0.43%. Unlike Korea, Japan's biggest winners came outside semiconductors. Airlines and automakers rallied after crude oil prices declined sharply following easing geopolitical concerns in the Middle East. Japan Airlines jumped 4.77%, benefiting from expectations of lower fuel costs. Subaru gained 3.81% as investors returned to exporters, while semiconductor equipment maker Tokyo Electron slipped 0.13%, reflecting investor caution after China's blockbuster semiconductor listing. The mixed performance suggests investors are becoming more selective. Rather than chasing every AI-related stock, today's gains favored sectors that directly benefit from lower energy prices, while semiconductor names pause after a strong run. Today's markets were driven less by earnings than by competition. CXMT's spectacular debut reminded investors that the artificial intelligence boom is creating new winners, but also new rivals. Korean chipmakers still advanced on confidence in global AI demand, while Japan found support from cheaper energy rather than semiconductors. Whether today's optimism holds may depend on whether investors continue rewarding future demand more than rising competition. We will be watching whether CXMT's debut changes global expectations for the memory industry and whether Korean semiconductor stocks can maintain their momentum despite growing competition from China. Thank you for watching AJP.